Hey guys, just wanted to really quickly show off a technique that I like to use. I used to trim, if there was a tree up here that I wanted to keep tall and straight, I would just trim all the branches off. Now, I try not to trim any branches off before I do work, because if there's a low branch that I don't want, I leave it attached to the tree. I leave it anchored there, and I pull this branch down, I set a big ass rock on it so that it doesn't move, and then I come in and I put a bucket of mulch on top of it and a bucket of mulch over there before I rake it out, plant my cover crops. And what happens is the tree branch is still alive, so it's going to stay limber and green. It's not going to negatively affect that tree. I'm still going to be able to get a tall, well, not on this tree. This tree is not very straight, but I'll still be able to get a tall straight branch out of that tree. But what happens is those branches that are all angling down are going to basically be a protective net. So when there's a little tree seedling popping up in there that I want to protect, it's protected. I don't have to put a cage around it. I don't have to put a net around it. I'm using what I've got to make a protective barrier for future plants. The other thing is, oh, I actually did cut this one. I was going to show you another example, but you know what? I didn't cut it all the way through. I just did a half cut on that, and I laid it down over there. So you can see this branch is now laid down in on top of my caliche berm, and then I put the mulch soil granite gravel mix on top of that, and I planted it with cover crops. And as you can see, got some cover crop action coming up. Now I'm going to show you why I'm doing all this and why I'm leaving all these trees. Most people will be like, why in the hell are you leaving all these juniper trees? And I want to show you that these trees, they used to be real thick and bushy, but I'm coming out with a sickle, basically a brush cutting blade for my weed whacker, and I'm trimming them all up. So all of these are going to end up being tall and straight and useful posts, and later on I will be able to continue to selectively clear and find out which ones I want, because I don't really want that cedar thicket ahead. Those are all branchy, they're all competing, they're eventually going to grow up and compete with my oak tree, which I don't want. But here I don't have an oak canopy, but all of these are going to now be tall and straight trees because I'm training them from a very early age to be tall and straight. The other thing I've come in, green is good. I flagged the green oak trees, and what's going to happen is these oak trees, somewhat protected from the weather by all of the junipers around them, as they grow tall and straight to compete for light, I can take out any juniper that I don't want to give the oak a better place to grow. And I want to highlight some of these stumps. Look at the size of that stump. That was a pretty good sized juniper tree that somebody else cut out without really much thinking. They were just like, junipers suck, let's take them out, let's cut them down. And I don't think that way, because when I come onto other parts of the property, I see these nice big juniper trees. That's like 14 inches in diameter, and as I trim that up to be a taller, straighter tree, I take all the brush down and I lay this brush down on a contour keyline pattern that I'm going to come back later and cover up with all the mulch like you saw earlier. And these trees that are left are going to be much bigger trees. So here's an example of a burned out stump. So I don't think there was very many juniper trees here when this tree got burned out. And this is a big, a nice big stump. It was probably a 2-foot in diameter tree, and I've got other examples that are much bigger than this, and I'll go video one here in just a moment. So instead of just fully taking these trees out, I'm lollipopping them up, making them as tall and straight as possible. So you can see a couple nice tall straight trees. I have a pole saw, so they're at least 12 feet. A lot of them are 12 feet tall before they branch. And then I use that material to lay it all down here. So this is basically the wood that I don't want. This could also be stuff that didn't get fully burned in a wildfire. And then you come back later, and you can come back with an excavator, and you can scoop on the uphill side and take soil and cover it up. And now all of the brush in there will not burn, but it's in a leaf biomimicry pattern or a beaver biomimicry pattern that slows the water through different places in the landscape. And it's going to use all of the cut branches to basically act as rebar inside of your, water collecting curb or your water soaking curb and grow plants. And if you don't want to do any earth disturbance in various areas, you can go to a spot, or maybe the area over there was where a house was and there was chemicals and debris that you don't want leaving the property over there. You can come to a different spot and dig it out and basically make a small pond. So here's a spot on my property where I had decent soil. At least it's brown instead of white. and I can mix it with some of that mulch and granite gravel material that I had. And this is basically, for me, eventually when I bring more material down here versus on the roadside that you just saw, this is going to be a staging area where I'm going to mix all of my different minerals, mix my soil, basically make this a compost pile, you know, 35 feet in diameter and 8 feet deep compost pile / pond. When it does fill up, I can leave if I leave a pipe down in the bottom, or I just jam a couple pieces of pipe down deep in there, I can potentially even aerate this whole pond and basically make the whole thing into a compost tea brewing machine inside of your compost pile, because it will, when this fills up with water, it will fill up with water, so you'll need to aerate it. You might go anaerobic for at least a couple days. But you can use this material in other places on your property. And I just like to show off what you can do as you're trimming your trees taller and straighter. You know, I'm going to take that tree, make it taller and straighter, but I'm going to use the leftover stuff that I cut and turn it into a water harvesting beaver biomimicry pattern throughout this whole property to mitigate floods and increase groundwater recharge and grow food that I want for my land.